The race is on.
Yeah.
It's a good UI.
Yeah.
Yeah, good to go. Hello, everyone. Good morning, everybody.
Hello. Good
Uh,
morning.
Show us some emojis if you're able to see us, hear us. All right. All right, sounds good. Thanks, everyone. Pleasure meeting you all here. I'd like to extend a warm welcome to everyone. So, before we start, I'd like to go a round of introduction. So, let me quickly introduce myself and then the speakers. So I'm Meena. I currently head HR at Amit. So this is the Amit platform you're seeing. And Amit itself is a remote-first organization, and this platform is an all-in-one virtual digital platform where you can host intuitive, very interactive virtual meetups and events, where you can engage your communities through this physical room and social lounge kind of a setup, as well as network and socialize in this platform. So we're not a meeting tool. We are a virtual events tool. So here at Amit, I am responsible to steer the global people and culture agenda while really focusing on managing and growing a diverse talent across 15 countries. Being virtual also means there's a lot of effort in really looking at how we can collaborate and become efficient in this setup. So in today's topic, we are talking to some really key talent heads from across the globe. So we have Diane from Maker Lab, Manoj from Goodera, Dakshti from PeopleStrong, and Divkiran, who's like recently joined a new company, Seagate. Topics like, how do you really look at global talent strategy? Like, what kind of tips and what kind of practical guides HR leaders really will be able to share with you guys in terms of building this talent strategy, right from engagement to recruitment to retention. So we'll be glad to hear this from our team. Let me also bring in our speakers here to kind of introduce themselves. We'd like to hear a little bit more from you. So let me bring Diane. So Diane, we'd like to hear from you. Introduce yourself and a little bit of your background for that the audience really knows who you are.
Sure, thank you. No, I really appreciate putting this together. I know it takes a lot of moving parts, and really, we're all going to work in really high growth companies, and just everything is busy. So I appreciate that. So I've kind of also, I don't know, it seems like I'm a magnet to hyper growth companies. That's what I'm going to always land in, and navigating around that sort of growth and change, and just constantly that's something that I'm drawn to. And even if I want to work in a more established company, it seems like I'm meant to be working in startups. I started my journey more with project management and hospitality, moved into talent acquisition through recruitment route, talent acquisition, and from there it's really going to go into that HR, really from a talent engagement and community build up that I'm currently on. Maker Lab is we are an agency that doesn't have a website yet, because we do support Google and Netflix with different projects. So obviously a lot of the work we cannot show externally. We are going through a very interesting phase of really kind of branding ourselves and identifying who we are. I think we are disrupting an agency industry. So I was creating a new industry. So more to follow. So I'm not really going to be able to kind of tell you more about Maker Lab as such in one sentence, but it's a hyper growth company because we are going through this change where we are cutting off a lot of the middle layers of communication in the marketing space and really bringing talent that have been so restless and just wanting to just get hands-on and do things. We're bringing them together. So it's been an interesting journey so far. So and looking forward to hearing from others as well.
Sure. Absolutely. Love to talk to you, Diane, little bit more deeper as we proceed into this session. Let me bring Manoj. Hey, Manoj. We'd like to understand about you a little bit more.
Sure. Hey, Meena. Thanks for having me here. I'm a recruiter by heart, right? So I started my journey working for a recruitment agency, and then set up my own recruiting agency. And from there, wanted to see the corporate side of the world. So joined a company called dunnhumby, which was owned by Tesco. So was leading the recruitment for dunnhumby for the APAC region, and post which I had moved to Capillary to lead their recruiting efforts for Capillary globally. And now here I am with this company called Goodera, managing the HR function. So Goodera is basically a CSR and sustainability platform. Yeah, so I've been here for around 6 months now.
All right, sounds good, Manoj. I hope, and one more thing that I'd like to really mention is me and Manoj really collaborated well while we worked in Capillary last. We had a great connect. I think one of the best recruiters I've seen myself, Manoj. Great to have you here, and love
Thanks,
to talk to you about a lot of strategy that you've implemented in the past and going to as well. So let me bring Daksh.
Hi everyone. Hey everyone. I started off my career being a software engineer, moved into the recruiting side of the world. By the time 2007 recession came in, I was working with a corporate known as HCL Technologies. Worked there for about 7 odd years before I moved into PeopleStrong. I realized doing a lot of my stints within HCL in terms of the process re-engineering side of it, that's something that attracts me is the HR tech world. I did certifications on Kenexsa. I'm a SF certified. Then I moved into people. These HR tech solutions outside India specifically. So that's how my career has been. It has been 6 years odd in PeopleStrong now. Still going strong with more years coming in.
Thank you so much, Daksh. So let me also bring Dev. Dev, try to on your video if possible. Dev, you're on mute.
Hi, can you all hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. Possibility you can switch on video?
I'm trying, Meena. I will try again after introducing myself and before I start speaking again. But quickly, just through the introduction, I also come from a similar background like Daksh mentioned. I also started with coding. But interestingly, my coding work started with coding for products in HR. So I think I got lucky to find that early on that, this is what I want to do. I think for me, the biggest reason was that once you start working on something that is changing something for employees, you realize that you're making a larger impact than just doing your work, whether it's a small performance organization, application, or whether it's a big HR transformation. So I've been in HR transformations now for over 15 years and still my calling, I would say, continuing that. Currently, I'm leading talent redeployments, internal mobility inside Seagate. More focused on our strategy because it's a technology company and there's a lot of moving pieces in terms of the new skills that are there in the market and how you meet that demand for the business as well. Seagate is a storage company. We make a lot of storage devices. It's been in the business for a very long time, but like I said, because of technology, a lot of things are changing. And for me, this is going to be a super interesting discussion. More than just sharing my experience, I would really like to learn what everybody else is also doing because we are going through our own reimagine and, a redeployment journey. So while I share what we are doing, while I share what my perspective is, I would really love to learn from everybody here as well.
Sounds good, Dev. Really glad to be here. I think I would like to give our audience a little bit more perspective about you. So I'd like to ask you further more questions here. So tell me about something that is not on your LinkedIn so that people know what your true self is. So let's start the other way around. Let's start with Dev again.
No, not me first. No, I'm just kidding. I think what you won't find on my LinkedIn is that, I absolutely love dogs and now all kinds of animals. I started with having a golden retriever named Bumpy. If any of you are in Bangalore, you would realize how the roads are. So he's named after the roads. His name is Bumpy. We thought that, Bumpy doesn't sound right. So we gave him a nice title, and now he's Sir Bumpy. And while we are all trying to figure out how to get connected, how to work with computers, how to work from fully remote, not meeting our teams, he's taught me a lot on the whole patience and how you can continue giving without having any expectations. So that's made me a lot of or had me get into a lot of interest on how we can really help all kinds of animals. So that's my go-to volunteering these days.
That's great. I'd like to add to that as well. I was somebody who wouldn't have had a pet forever. But my kids are the ones who are like, no, we need a pet. You can't force your feelings on us, so buy as a pet, right? So we actually picked up a Shih Tzu puppy like 3 weeks ago, and you have no clue how it has changed my life. Now I'm the one caring for it the largest. Like the mornings are like, oh my God, has the Shih Tzu really eaten? Her name is Zoe. So like Zoe really eaten her breakfast first in the morning and then take her for a walk and stuff like that. So that was a transformation for me. Didn't know pet could make so much of a difference in our lives. Totally agree. Yeah. So let's move
I'm totally obsessed with him. I need to know where he is at all times. And if I don't see him after my calls are over, like every call, I have to see him 5 minutes in between, or I'm like lost. Like, where is he? Yeah.
Nice. So Daksh?
I think it's a very similar situation, but it has been 9 months when I adopted a dog, again a golden retriever, very similar to Divkiran's story, but yeah, 9 months old, learned at least. I mean, this is something like a pre-parenting kind of a thing that I learned all throughout. I mean, the first couple of months to ensure that how's he, whether he's all. When I took him, he was just 35 days old. So those initial days have been, and yes, as they was just stating, I mean, even if he's away from my eyes for some time, I get worried. Where is he? Where has he gone? But yeah, I mean, the name, I kept his name as Oscar. I thought at least the way they were saying that it was more on the road side of it, I thought I may get an Oscar, may not get an Oscar anytime soon. So let me have a pet. At least I say that I claim to have, I have an Oscar now. So, but I think that's one thing which you won't find in my LinkedIn. Second, I love cooking. I love to cook anything Indian, anything Chinese, Italian, all these things work out for me. It doesn't come out either from my face or from my the work that I do. But yes, I love to do cooking a lot.
Oh, that's great. I'd like to take a break from cooking if somebody can do that for me. Thanks, Dash. Nice learning about that. Let's hear from Manoj. Manoj, what is something that it's not on your LinkedIn?
Yeah, I've been a professional cricketer during my early days. So that is something which you won't find on LinkedIn. I've represented Hyderabad during my early days.
Nice. Cricket.
Yeah.
And I think you've lost a lot of weight also. Cricket again?
No, not really. Thanks to COVID.
Good. I think COVID really helped everyone look back at their way they're, utilizing their day, like work out, have nutritious food and stuff. Great. So let's hear it from Diane then.
Sure. Yeah. So something that you won't find on LinkedIn is for years now, actually, I've been working with quite a lot of, I just work with women that have hit sort of a rock bottom in their lives, whether that's sort of mentally or physically or just sort of spiritually even. So I work with them quite a lot often. I think it's interesting that has come up in terms of, people losing weight, gaining weight. I think a lot has happened behind closed doors. We know that a lot has happened behind closed doors, and people just kind of grasping for all kinds of coping mechanisms in life. So I'm working a lot at that. I've got a framework that I use, and we're kind of building a sort of global support network around that. So that's been really helpful.
Sure. I think that's really important to kind of be that supportive person, especially supporting the women. I know there are a lot of people who hit rock bottom, not just physically, mentally, but career-wise as well. They don't know what to do. I think that's great, Diane. Lending that hand, having that shoulder, that's really important. Great going there. So let's kind of quickly bounce into the topic that we want to discuss today. Clearly, I would love to understand, each one of you coming from a different domain, coming from different industries, but definitely all of your focus is to give the best talent strategy for your organization. So I'd love to understand, what do you see would be the trends of talent strategy in 2021? So perhaps we'll do another roster, probably starting from Manoj down to Dev. Yeah, Manoj. So what do you think are the trends that you will see in 2021?
Yeah. So from my perspective, both 2021 and 20, right, both together, because the organizations have gone remote, or probably now in 2021, with organizations entering into a hybrid model, right? It's extremely important for organizations to preserve their company culture, right, and also evaluate the value proposition of remote work versus in-office work, right? So having said that, definitely the things that will be the factors that will be of key priorities would be definitely recruiting, virtual onboarding, talent development, and employee well-being also will be critical.
Sounds good. So you're talking about now everything become digitalized. So your focus would definitely be how to really bring that digital sense to how you really run all of your functions, right? It could be hiring, it could be onboarding, it could be developing and retaining people. That's great.
True.
Diane, what do you think are the trends? Of course, we're going digital, but do you see any other nuances?
I'm putting on and off here. Right. I think, we can talk about the usual sort of suspects and things that, everybody kind of talks about around the world. I think some of the things I definitely want to implement as well is, first of all, is the HR well-being. I think that's where it all starts for me. For my sort of team as well, making sure that they are looked after, so they actually have the life vest on, so they can look after others. I think the HR community sort of burnout global is quite real, everything that they've had to deal with. Secondly is, from a talent perspective, again, there's usual things that everybody kind of talks about, but from a mental health perspective, before we start giving them access to meditation apps, do we actually, are the support teams and talent teams equipped to understand what are the signs of different mental sort of, well-being, declines or whatever that is? I think that's super important, because at the end of the day, if an employee starts to not show up for events or meetings, HR usually gets contacted, right? And really starting to see if there's been any difference in terms of the mental state. And then talent engagement wise as well, what we will talk about later, is really looking at the benefits what they have at the moment. Does it work anymore? And do we have to change, right? So when we give them allowances, what it used to be like the travel, can we just use that travel and just shift it over to something else? It's really shifting around depending on the location. I think a couple of sort of trends that we have to look at around talent engagement and involvement as well.
Sounds good. I think some of the benefits, some of the activities that we used to do back in the normal world may have to be relooked, because suddenly they become redundant, suddenly they become irrelevant. We need to look at what is relevant today. Right? That's great points, Diane. Let's move to Daksh. So Daksh, what do you see are the trends?
Sure, I think 3-4 areas. If I have to categorize them holistically on the top by saying at least we should have focus wherein how do we create an alignment for all the employees, perhaps with the overall business strategy, right? That being at the core. I think 3-4 core areas which can be picked up. One is the focus on learning or reskilling. That's something that I believe will transform the economy moving ahead. So the focus on learning or reskilling side of it. Second is obviously how do you ideally say energize or actually increase the overall experience side of it. When I say energizing on the experience side, right, it's redesigning the entire work experience for an employee. When I say this thing, it's not specifically. I would rather add up to what Diane was saying. It's not typically only about mental well-being. I think it's now more from apart from mental well-being. It's about the holistic well-being. It's not always about the mental side of it. Now people are more focused, at least over the last 10, 11 months, the way things have changed. It's more moved on the side of the holistic well-being as to how employers can ensure that there is a holistic well-being for those employees. I think the third element is more on driving collaboration, more and more collaboration, on and ensuring that uh, how can ideally people thrive now and perhaps in the future, right? I mean, this could be either driving collaboration or driving 360 degrees feedbacks, and how do you gel up well within that. And I think how the last one could be, how do you augment AI into the human intuition side of it, right? Because I mean, with people with organizations taking a balanced approach of not calling out people still in the offices, or it's a hybrid workforce, how you can still give them that experience by bringing in AI or perhaps even augmented reality out there, or AR in picture, right? So I think these are the four areas how I see things moving in place on the talent trends.
Got it. I think you're talking about a lot of candidate and employee experience being the top,
Yes.
something that is on in focus right now. And I think we should do anything possible to ensure the well-being of employees and the experience is really taken care of.
Yeah.
That's great, Daksh. So let me also move to Dev.
Thank you, Meena. Me going last, I think I'll just bring in a little bit of a perspective from my marketing mindset. I was always fascinated by that. And, when we were studying marketing, a lot of case studies on marketing myopia, on how you can just focus on one product, take Kodak's example or take Nokia's example. And then, despite being the market leader, you can lose the market completely. I think that's what has happened to HR as well, especially in the last 1 year. So some of these trends weren't necessarily not on the mind map of HR professionals. It's just that last year has catapulted all of that into, the thrive mindset that Daksh was talking about just now. So now, of course, the need is to adopt this thrive mindset, right? It's evident from all the great work done by HR and digitization professionals in the last year due to COVID. And we need to not just recognize but accept that disruption is continuous. It's neither episodic, it's neither temporary. And so whatever we do, we need to really make sure that we need to learn to be agile as an HR organization, and we need to embrace disruption as a catalyst that then drives our talent strategy forward. So then the real question for me becomes, how do we make this shift from the survive to thrive, right? And I feel the answer is really to become distinctly human at the core of it, right? And then how to truly get human back into human resources, as a lot of us like to say, with digitization, with AI, with robotics thrown in the mix, and along with the global pandemic, where we all, I feel we are all thrown the same challenges, no matter which organization, which industry we were in. For me, I think the solution lies in four top trends. There are, of course, many things to do, but for me, the top four would be one, this sustainable futures and how we can build that. Because as the new generations keep coming in, we already have millennials, we already have Gen Z, we will have Gen Alpha striking the workforce in another 5 years, and they are no more looking for doing something just for earning money or just because they want to do something. They're really looking for a company which has a purpose. So sustainable futures, whether it is in terms of making sure you're sustainable for all the stakeholders, you have a purpose for the society. I think that is very important. That drives me to that holistic well-being. There's no more work and life separate anymore with last year and with remote working. And the next is really focusing on skills and capabilities of humans rather than saying, this is the skill you know, so that's all. A lot of reskilling and redeployment, because there are so many people who, even outside the market, if you don't look at your internal workforce, new skills are coming in every 6 months, every 3 months. So there's no option. We have to reskill and redeploy and repurpose the talent that we have. And of course, the gig economy, which means you have these super teams who come together, who deliver what they need to, and then move on to do another super project based on, again, their skill and capability. It's not jobs anymore, it's skills, really.
Totally agree with that. I think the hybrid workforce is something that is really catching up. If you see a lot of organizations, you can't really tell that 100% are all full-time employees, right? There are a mix of employees. You get a lot of freelancers, augmented staff, interns, everybody really coming together to make that organization, to win in that organization. So really bringing in practices that will help everyone really grow together, holistically, repurpose their skills and bring together. I think that is something that's focus on. And 2021 is going to be a great platform, for people's mindset to really change and looking at everyone as as one team, and not necessarily as, okay, this person's like a third-party person and this person's a freelancer and all of that. Great points, Devkiran. I think that also brings me into a place to talk about, when you talk about experience, we're talking about candidate experience, because we really want to allure that candidate and bring them in so that they are excited to take up the role that you are proposing to them. And then there's also employee experience, because it's important that you create that well-being, psychologically safe place, improve on their experiences at every stage, so that you're ensuring that you are able to motivate and retain the talent. So I'd like to ask you now that, what are the key measures that you've taken to ensure candidate and employee experience in your organization? Any initiatives that you should talk about? So this time, let's move from Daksh, Diane, Manoj, and Dev. So, yeah.
So I think when I say that it's about holistic well-being, taking ideally the center stage, I think a few things that can come across, or that even we are trying within our organization, is that how do we add up certain benefits to address mental or emotional issues, right? So we have people who have been too outspoken, or people who have been too outwards, right? And those people actually being sitting at home. We have ensured that within the organization, we have created a team who actually goes, counsels them, speaks to them, at least motivates them as to how important it was. Right? So that makes it as the one thing. Second is obviously, how do we, again, from the wellness standpoint, we have at least picked up things which can say that how we have tried to enable remote digital health checks for our employees. So even if there is any sort of issue or a health constraint that has come across, we have partnered with a lot of health check agencies wherein people can come in, which are all secured and all that stuff. People have taken into consideration. The employees don't have to go out of their home, and they can take up the services that the organization is providing. Even in terms of the health claims that have come across, parental policies, there could be normal or employee policies. We have ensured that everybody has been given that COVID cover as an add-on, right? That comes across. There are tie-ups with specific hospitals wherein the organization gets a priority just in case you are there, so as you don't go through certain hassles across. We have also had certain training sessions. We picked up certain trainers from outside who helped us in terms of who assisted people in terms of typically the mental health issues, people who are feeling depressed, people who are feeling low. We thought of doing certain sessions with them. That happened, and the overall this entire package of doing things, we have tried to put it into some sort of a policy. It's not very hard formed kind of a thing, But yeah, we are trying to put it across that there could be regular health checks that can be done. There could be regular services that can be given to the employees. Employees are being told that don't worry, be there, we are there supporting you guys. So at least typically on the holistic well-being, these are certain things that we are doing as an organization. From an aspect of the second part, wherein new ways of working comes across, or the experience side of it, we are at least ensuring that there is flexibility across the organization. Earlier, it used to be very role specific. To be honest, so it used to be like people who are the sales side of it, or teams like mine who are very customer centric. We used to have all that flexibility. With this change coming in, at least now the focus has gone up to that flexibility element going across the organization. So be it the hardcore operations, how do we drive flexibility for them? We are redesigning a lot of our processes and policies as well to ensure a better work experience side of it. Though being a part of, though PeopleStrong being itself as an HR tech organization, we are at least ensuring that there could be even small things that we do. So let's say we have started operating once a week from the office. So that's what we have started doing as of now. We have converted the entire office into a hot desk system, wherein you need to block your seats up front, right? So that's not a part of your so-called an HR digitization, but any specific thing to ensure that the experience of an employee when he or she enters the office is up to the mark. We have ensured we have created certain in-house apps wherein you can go ahead, block your seat. If the seats are available, you can go ahead. If there are no availabilities, you have to just stay within the home. So you can block your own rosters out there. So it's more as an employee-led thing. Earlier, it used to be a manager-led thing when bosses used to tell you, right, come to office, these are the times, this is where you sit. Now it's all on the employees. You know the place because there are distancing norms which are there. The respective people can go block in and move ahead. We have tried to be more agile in nature. Right, so it's not a typical policy movement. We have tried to learn with this change. And we have also tried to decentralize a lot of our processes. Right, earlier it used to be a lot of things were being done from within the office, within a specific location. So Gurgaon being the central hub out here, we have tried to decentralize a lot of these decisions across different geographies now where we are present. So these are the key things at a high level where we are trying to focus on the holistic well-being for the employees, as well as how do we adopt the new ways of working via the HR side of it to assess the employees.
Sounds good, Laksh. I think great points covered there. I think we are globally looking at how we can bring in a sustainable workplace, and I think we're doing everything possible to ensure that sustainable workplace is implemented. That's great. Let's move to Manoj. Manoj, I'd like to understand more from the aspect of candidate experience versus employee experience. What are the particular things that you're doing to ensure their experience is taken care, and then you're really are able to really attract that talent to join you and retain with you? I think you're on mute, Manoj.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, candidate experience definitely, especially at this point of time, is of utmost importance, right? Especially when you're not being able to host them in your office, right? So what we are trying to do is ensuring that there's a lot more communication with the candidate, right, at every step, right from we getting their application, right, to moving to the next stage. Every stage, we keep them continuously informed about what's happening, how are we going to run the entire process, giving them an overview about the entire process and giving them timeline as to what should they expect from us, right? And then drive that entire experience is what we're trying to do.
Got it. So you're talking about regular check-ins, right? Regular check-ins.
That's right.
Persons, like once the offer has gone, regular check-ins. After the person's joined, there's regular check-ins. So you're like emphasizing on regular check-ins. That's great. Right. That's great, Manoj. Let's move to Diane. Yeah. So Diane, what different are you doing in terms of really having that candidate experience and employee experience, at the forefront of Make a Lab?
Sure. I think for me, so one thing we've actually changed, we don't use candidate anymore as a term. We've completely removed that from our organization. So we only use the term talent. Again, I think it's just a sort of where my talent vision is going, which we'll talk about a little bit later. Definitely one thing is we no longer, we can't talk about office perks anymore, right? That's not the communication strategy anymore. It's not about focusing on that. So really what we've done is really focusing around, who are we really looking for? Like, who is it that you are, and are we a match, right? So it's a lot of storytelling. So that's where we believe that the experience for our talent that we're looking for comes a really honest conversations even before we start meeting them, right? I call it the reverse psychology. It's really going like, we're not that organization that is going to give you a very clear career structure. Like, that's just not us. So we're not going to start lying about it, that you're going to have, that's going to be a very set career structure or whatnot. So a lot of that has changed, I think, in terms of, especially because we are still working on, really kind of presenting ourselves in the market as we're disrupting the market. Secondly, as well, talent experience is the timeline expectations, I think I was going to mention earlier, have to be crystal clear, because we no longer have that face-to-face interaction. Also is, sort of really going, listen, I'm not going to get back to you until next 2 weeks. I need that time, right? Because we're all dispersed, we need a little bit extra time. Secondly is, from an interviewing perspective, is I give my talent very clear instructions. You are now in charge to make sure that meeting happens, because I'm not going to be there to welcome you to the office to make sure you get to the meeting room. If you're going to be running late, if you're not able to attend, you need to inform everybody at the same time. Don't just inform me, right? Because everybody will be included. So little snippets like that. With our own talent, our sort of, people that are already on board, a lot of the focus is communication. I'm just talking about a lot of the other things that perhaps others don't cover. It's the simple things. The first sentence of my every email, company-wide email, is like, how are you doing? Please reach out if you need to speak, right? Every single sentence is respect. Just keep constantly reminding, I don't know what's going on with you. I'm not a mind reader. As a team, you have to come to us if you're struggling as well, right? Secondly is, the sort of communication-wise as well, is that what I sort of earlier sort of changed as well, pulse surveys, right? The pulse surveys have now changed to be a very straight to the point. Are you struggling? Yes or no? Like, I can't, because again, like it shouldn't be anything fluffy around that. I need to know where you are right now so we can take action based on that, right? And again, from an experience perspective, all our rewards and reward sort of bonus and whatever the money sort of, resources we had set aside, we scrapped everything. All overnight, it said, listen, no questions asked, work from home improvements, you use it for what you need to use it for. So little things like that. Team is small. We're a growing company, 100 people there, but it's just, sometimes we gasp for air because it's so small team, and how do we support all these growing teams? And I think, just going back and just taking a little bit of a step, like what are the really simple things if you don't have the resources, both time and, money-wise, what are the simple human connections that we can make to enhance our talent experience, both internal and external?
Sounds good. And I think some of the very important points that you've covered, especially around spinning a proper story to ensure that you are bringing in your value proposition to the candidate, like you're delivering it in that narrative, right? That's a great point. And I think I also really love the point about being very crisp and clear about how you ask questions during a pulse check, right? Otherwise, you are not able to read between the lines. You're not able they're just using the pulse check as a task. Okay, I don't want anybody reminding me, so let me just go fill something so that nobody's coming behind me, right? So those are brilliant points, Diane. I think really important to bake into the organization's DNA to really bring out the great culture. So let's move to Dev. Dev, so what are your experiences that you want to add on?
So for me, Meena, I think a lot of it was covered by Manoj, Diane, and Dakshdeep. I'll try bringing specific examples, which probably weren't covered or slightly similar. I think because Diane mentioned the whole thing about keeping everybody engaged and checking in with them, and giving them the comfort, making it a safe space for them to talk. That's really been high on our agenda as well, and especially even within HR teams, because we are all working overtime. A lot of things which we were not expected to do earlier, we are being asked to do that, right? Administratively, when somebody enters, like Dakshdeep said, experience of entering a workplace after COVID, even that has now fallen on how HR helps and supports this. Like in India, if you're entering, you should have Arogya Setu on your mobile, you get it checked, you get your temperature checked. So I think one of the things I feel really good about the leadership here is that we deliberately also make sure to tell people that it's okay to take time off, it's okay to take a break, it's okay to tell us what's going on. We have like last week we had a CHRO workshop where we decided very clear priorities, that these are the 3 things that everybody is going to focus on. Anything else that comes up, discuss, don't just start doing, which we used to do earlier because it was part of our job, right? So prioritization is something we have started focusing on and encouraging. So, you limit what you are doing because there's so much to do and there is only so many people, right? Not everybody is hiring again. The second thing is we started a lot of virtual coffees and virtual hello sessions, right? So that's something that has really helped to not talk about any agenda for 30 minutes, but just kind of really the way you would, right? You would go for a coffee or a tea break when you are in office. So we do that. Can't do that every day, but we try to do it once in 2 weeks at least. And then we've started something called Focus Fridays. Now, Focus Fridays is also every 2 weeks when there are no meetings organized, at least by HR department, with each other. So you get the time to really finish whatever you have piled up on your plate for the last 2 weeks. So anything to do with policy, anything to do with planning for communications, anything which you have to do yourself, you get to a lot of time to do that. Self-learning as well in those in that time. I think the other things, there are a lot of policies as well around specifically for, mental health and COVID. So if you want to take off, mental health is a plausible reason to do that, and making everybody comfortable to do that through communications. We used to have earlier, I think, 5 holidays which you could take flexibly. I think out of that, 3 of them have now been dedicated to anything to do with COVID. Doesn't have to be being sick, but it could be even mental stress. You just want to take a break. So that's there. I also really liked one of the practices that my husband's company, Adobe, is following. They, first of all, for example, they've allowed you to go out and, go back home, work from there, and they allow you to take your resources from office, like monitors and keyboards, etc. So you don't really necessarily have to buy. And I think it's a very smart idea because whatever is lying in office is not used if you are not there. So I think that was great. And they are, I think, giving a holiday once a month as a COVID thank you. So you anyways get 1 day break to do whatever you want to do with that long weekend. So I thought I would mention that because I really like that policy. I don't get it, so I kind of get jealous of him sometimes. But really, really good to adopt. And then, of course, there is a lot of support from Seagate now that we have vaccination drive coming up as well. So if you have a vaccination for your family or if you have vaccination for yourself, you can take half a day off and you can take care leaves off. So a lot of that. And again, with rewards, like Diane mentioned, a lot of rewards has changed because we can't tell them that you will only use it because you're coming to office. Like, let's say, anything to do with traveling. There's no traveling happening anymore. So a lot of support in terms of, whether it is internet, whether it is any equipment that you want. So all of that is being covered. I would also like to mention possibly one of the things Schneider changed, which is my previous company. Schneider has actually gone into a model wherever it is possible. It's now officially allowed and okay to work from home for 2 days a week. out of the 3. If you're really coming to office, you can still work from home for 2 days a week. And I think that really helped because in a manager-driven culture, this policy really helps because nobody can force you to come to office now. So I think those are some of the things I've learned across different organizations I thought I would share.
That sounds good. I think one of the points that I really enjoyed is about the no agenda discussion. You have no clue how important it is to spend time to build bonding, to build camaraderie, right? So we at Airmeet also launched something called as a brown bag session. It's just a skip level meeting with the founders and head of departments and a few others, where they come in and just have a chat about anything, right? So such discussions, when we quickly retrospect, we know that a lot of people enjoy those conversations. They suddenly see that there's a lot of bonding within the organization, right? Within the people that maybe they didn't have a routine or didn't have a cadence to talk to otherwise, right? So a lot of positive feedback on the no agenda and those brown bag sessions. Those are great points. I think a lot of organizations should start following that. It's not always about work. Since everyone's virtual right now, I don't think not most organizations have adapted hybrid workplaces yet. I think some of these are really helpful. And I think, yes, vaccinations coming in, and I'm glad a lot of these organizations, even Nova Benefits, I think I saw some posts out there that they are planning to vaccinate everybody in the organization. So even we are kind of contemplating, vendors who can help us vaccinate people across the globe. So those are great initiatives coming in. So thanks, Dev, for sharing those thoughts. I think once we understand the value proposition the organizations are giving, because we want to create that environment, the best environment for people to come in, be motivated, feel belonged. But we also want to understand the other side of it. For example, the candidate. What are the competencies of candidates? Has the competencies of candidates changed in a way that we want to see them belong in the organization? So earlier we really wanted people who were high on skills. Maybe today it's right now moving into places where they want to look at people who have high empathy. So I want to understand from you guys, what has changed in the way we look at talent, right? What are the key skills right now we are tapping into, right? What are the non-negotiables you are right now, witnessing in your organizations? So let's perhaps start with Diane, Kiran, and then Manoj. I think Daksh just left the table. Maybe his network is bad, but let's start with Diane. So Diane, what has changed in terms of talent expectation?
Talent, yeah. Talent expectations from our perspective. I think a lot of it is, I'm hearing a little bit of a background noise. Is that okay? Okay. A lot of it is now, it's interesting, right? In terms of having these conversations about sort of emotional intelligence and really kind of working on self, right? And I think today is more than ever, I can see that there's a difference on that. People who've been working on really becoming super clear about it, like in terms of who they are, what are their values, where do they want to go? Because it's, again, like it's career progression. There's a lot that companies can do, but a lot has to come from that individual, right? Where am I going in my life? And I think that with that, because again, like now you're kind of disconnected from actual physical interactions and in the office where you can sort of hide away and just get on that wheel. Now you've been forced into that silence and that isolation and in that sort of, room. You're going to have to start thinking about these things, right? What is really important to me? What is the values, etc. So that's something that we're definitely kind of looking at more because, again, the office, you can go back to the office one day, but you're going to have to be able to navigate around these life's changes more than ever. So I call the talent that we sort of hire, they're more like sort of mavericks, right? They're able to adjust to these changes. So that's a lot of that things that we focus on. And it's, again, from a perspective of importance of them and what we can offer. And that's the clarity that we really have to be very crystal clear about. We're not going to be able to offer certain things that they expect. And honesty is super, super important. So often I tell them, I think it's not going to be right for you because we're not going to be able to match with what you're looking for, right? So, yeah, so a couple of things like that. Expectation-wise, what else is... Yeah, so for them as well to be able to, sort of build their own path, right? And from that, it's really the sort of screening questions I often have is beyond the role. It's really about like, first of all, what's not working right now for you in the role? It's a reverse psychology again. And then what is, if you're from the outside in, what would you change in that industry, right? So it's just really putting a business hat on for a lot of times because they have to sort of shift these companies and shape our companies from externally now, right? Almost like consultants used to do. So things like that. So almost, a lot of the talent now needs to think like a freelancer, like an independent consultant, like a subject matter expert. They need to be able to grasp that. That's something that comes up.
Got it. So that's great. Some of the great points, Diane. I think it's so important with the changing world that we show them what we expect, right? It's important to look at transferable skills. It's important to look at, of course, the organization is agile, but are you also agile to kind of come here and adjust with us, right? Some amazing points there, and of course, roles are no more just come in and do your work. It has to be consultative. It has to be value add. And you're just not the subject matter expert, but then you need to also look at how else you can bring in holistic view to build the organization and carve out your own career path from there on, right? It's not like HRs now sitting and telling you, giving you a hierarchy that you're here, then you become X and Y and Z. No, it's no more that, right? People are right now. It's an open book. People can come into organization and really carve their way out. Or carve the career paths on their own. So those are great points, Diane. Let me also move to Dev and ask, what kind of talent expectations are there right now? What has changed from before?
I think I would say I would like to divide it into three parts, right? One is the employee or candidates or the future talent, as we can call them. I think it's very, very important. Whether we look at whatever has happened because of COVID or whether we just look at the way technology is growing and accelerating and changing every day in the market. I mean, when I was doing my engineering, AI was probably not even a big chapter. It was not even a chapter. It's a course today, right? And within that, there are so many languages. I had not heard of Ruby on Rails or Python or so many other things about 5-10 years back. So I think it's very important. What we would like to look into in a candidate, external, internal, both, is definitely learning agility. This is something we want to imbibe, not just in HR, but everywhere else. Because if you don't have the learning agility, or we do not hire or train people for that learning agility, we are setting everybody up for failure. So I think learning agility is definitely number one. And then empathy, that is, I think, second most important. Everybody has seen it, that if there is disruption, that is what makes or breaks you. Let's put it that way. You could be the best in your skill, you could be best in your area, but if you do not know how to exercise empathy, you're going to find it hard, whether you're an employee or a manager. And third, I think, is a purpose, right? And it's okay to say that the purpose is money, or the purpose is just to earn a living and run my family, or the purpose is to really do something new and disruptive. But I think that purpose is really important in terms of what we can provide to the candidates or the talent or the employees, right? Because if they don't see a purpose, especially like I mentioned earlier with the changing demographics, they don't stay. They will not stay with you if they do not know their purpose. So making sure that there is a cultural fit in terms of purpose, I think, is extremely important as well. On the manager side also, I think a lot of work has to be done, because all the people managers, team leads, etc., project managers, program managers are so used to presence and looking at what's going on, visibility of it. And it's really hard. I'm not saying they're wrong. It's just that they've been working that ways, and changing human biases and mindset takes time. And COVID has expedited it, but it's still a long way to go to move from saying, I will look at a presence of someone in office versus the productivity that they are bringing to the team, or any new ideas and collaboration that they are bringing to the team. So a lot of trainings in terms of, managers are going on, for example, in Seagate, to ensure that the people managers know how to change their mindset so they can also reflect the same thing for their employees instead of stressing them out even more during current situation. So leaving that control, becoming more than a manager, becoming a coach or becoming a talent builder rather than a talent hoarder. So that's what we are really working on. And on the leadership part, I think a lot of focus on emotional quotient, a lot of focus on empathy and leading with the heart, right? KPIs are always going to be there. And I'll bring you back to the point I mentioned earlier. We had a marketing myopia, and here is a human resource myopia, that we focus only on customer, we focus only on making sure that our business is delivered. But now I will see a lot of shift across all companies on how we can repurpose this talent, how we can reskill and redeploy the talent internally. And to that extent, Seagate is actually doing that. I would be honest to tell you that talent marketplace and talent mobility is actually what I owe my job to. That's something I've been doing for last 4 years, and that's what I'm doing now at Seagate. It's a next step, next level, but a lot of work in terms of moving from skills, because we were in IT 2.0 skills, and the few products of our future, the ones we have envisaged, need IT 4.0 skills. So how do we move from IT 2.0 to 3.0 to 4.0, making sure all our employees, or let's say most of our employees, are engaged, most of them are reskilled and then redeployed. So we've launched an internal talent market where you can go in and fill in your, not just who you are, which something which we do on LinkedIn, but also to say, I'm in HR, but I might want to go to marketing in 4 years from now. What is this career path? How do I get there? Do I switch to internal communications first, or can I do a lateral move directly to marketing? Or I could do gigs, small projects, 2 hours a week, 3 hours a week, and that would help me learn that skill. Or if I have to build a path of a mix of on-job training and learning and then moving to job, all of that. Going back to Diane's point, right, we need to find those people who want to grow. And then this is the platform we provide to say, hey, we are really happy that you're motivated and you want to learn. It ties into our business agenda as well. And here is the tool, here is the policy and process that will support you to get there. So for me, I think these are really important. And from a Seagate perspective, we are really working hard to make sure this talent marketplace, which was launched in November, today is actually providing people to look at, it's an AI-based tool which takes into consideration your current skills, your aspirations, trends of what other people in similar roles have been doing, and then gives you full-time positions, part-time projects as gigs, and also networking opportunities with similar people to learn from them.
Sounds good, Dev. I think, just summarizing, talking about being agile. It's the same thing. Perhaps what Diane was mentioning about adjustability, having the transferable skills from moving from one place to another, and definitely without empathy and without empathy and actually having a purpose, perhaps aligning the purpose of the organization and the individual, then there's no way forward if that's not in place, right? So those are great points, Dev. Let me also quickly move to Manoj and understand, how do you see talent expectations changed? I know we were looking at talent for A, B, and C, but right now with the new workplace, hybrid workplace, a lot of expectations have changed.
Right. Yeah, I'll definitely echo to what Diane and Dev have spoken about this, right? But from our perspective, being a startup, right, we don't have the luxury of hiring a lot of talent, right? So we need to be precise in what we need to hire, right? And we get clear expectations from the hiring managers saying that this is what we need. So definitely from a skills perspective, that is a must-have for us. And from a candidate, what we expect is having the right attitude and the right mindset, right? And then willingness to learn. And of course, being a startup, their willingness to work in ambiguous situations, right? Things change extremely fast in a startup, right? And I'm sure Diane and Meena will agree to it. So definitely, this is one of the key aspects that we expect in a candidate to work in ambiguous situations, right? And in return, what we offer to them is, from an EVP standpoint, is definitely around giving them great work, cutting edge, allowing them to work on cutting edge technologies, right? Giving them a lot of freedom to innovate, and of course compensation which is up to the market standards.
Understood. That's great, Manoj. I think that's one of the key points, right? Things are dynamic. Things are fast moving.
Right.
We really do not know what's going to happen. Maybe we have a vision, but we don't know what we're going to do to get to that vision. Things are always perpetually changing because if this doesn't work, we need to have a plan B, plan C, plan D, and those plan B comes into picture even before we know this plan A is going to succeed or not, right? So having that patience, being flexible, really able to work beyond that ambiguous situations is so important. I think I think is a key skill required right now if you're looking at opportunities in startups and even in the fast-paced organizations. Those are great points covered, Manoj. Thanks for that.
If I could, I probably have a question for all three of you, right? One thing which we face a lot, especially, coming from a very core technology company, which really writes codes in all these new languages, right? So one of the things we definitely face every time is that when you go to a hiring manager to ask for what do they want in the candidate, all of what we are talking about is a perspective that HR brings, right? But when you look at their perspective, they will come up with a list of 10, 15 skills. And then it's very difficult in the market to find somebody who has all those skills, right? They'll want C++ as a programming language and Python and Tableau and data structures. And I'm like, I can't find anybody with all of those skills. So how do you train them or manage them to, then think of this learning agility that we were talking about, that, they may know only 2 skills, but they have this learning capability. So they'll join and, surely learn something else. Are you doing any assessment centers, or is it just more conversations with hiring managers?
Yeah, this is a question for talent. Definitely Diane and Manoj are the ones to answer this. Let me bring Manoj. He looks super excited, so let me know, Manoj.
Yeah, these are the usual ones, right? So, and that's a habit for hiring managers to look out for the so-called purple squirrels, which are hard to find. So probably what I do here is I work very closely with them in terms of partnering with them and helping them understand what is possible and what is not possible, what is available in the market, and how should we hire the right person with the right skill. Rather than hiring for all the skills, we should also look at their willingness to learn and adapt, right? And show them a career path once they come into the business.
Sounds good.
That's an interesting one, Manoj. I think something I need to take back as well, because our TA team is also working hard, and I face that in the internal hiring side a lot, because we allow them to add the skills that they want to see, and then suddenly they'll not get the right matches because they want everybody, but they'll get only 1 or 2 right matches for that. So good. I mean, maybe we can also connect offline for me to learn a little more from you.
Sure.
Love to hear from Diane as well.
Yes, I think from that perspective, worked on all disciplines in the future. When I was in the previous organization, it was from everything, from customer service to technology to warehouse to everything, right? And today we're more marketing focused and creative and whatnot. I often go to the drawing board, like literally on the whiteboard back in the days, but it was really sort of focusing on what are the non-negotiables, and we agreed together with the hiring managers what are the non-negotiables, and it ranges from 3 different types. So first of all, is the skills still going to need, right? If your platform is built on Python, you're going to have to have Python developer at the back end, right? But of course, then it's the 2 different ones is that sometimes it's like, is that person going to be mostly working on a stable code or messy code, right? When we're talking about the break and make kind of code. So having that personality-wise as well, like, are they more of a person that wants to just mess around with code and just really create something, or they want that stability? So that's where the personality-wise comes in. And finally is really, I suppose, from their past experience as well, just really 3 dots is like just 3 dots of what is it really that you need the experience to have, and not just go to every single checklist that there is. So just really becoming really clear, and when they start to get away from it, bring back the list in front of them.
Yeah, sounds good. Let me also add my 2 cents here, because I'm also handling talent at Airmeet, and I clearly see what a challenge it is, right? when stakeholders are really asking for unrealistic folks that you don't know really exist or not, right? So I think it really boils down to three things. One is having that rapport with the stakeholder, like really having a lot of conversation, meaningful conversation with the stakeholder and building that rapport. Second is presenting a lot of data, right? It's about really going out there, doing some research and bringing in data that'll basically give an outline to the hiring manager about what is available there, right? And third is the urgency of the hire. If it's urgent today, you need to make do with what's available. I mean, if you have all the time in the world to hire, then I will search for 3 months to get you that person, right? So if it's urgent, we need to look at what are your, like Diane said, what are your non-negotiables? If these few people fit into that bucket, just get them in. So I think it's just these three. When these three marry each other, then I think we have the candidate to hire. Right? Sounds good. It was a great session. Thanks, Diane, Manoj, and Dev. Dakshdeep suddenly had a customer call and he had to drop out. But it was a great session, a lot of learning, and I think the talent marketing is really disrupting. A lot of HR leaders who bring different perspective, innovative perspective into place is something that we are, constantly seeing right now. Thank you, guys. Thank you for adding a lot of value here. I would also like to see if there are any questions. If not, guys, feel free to drop me your questions. We will be able to take that up as a follow-up session later, because there's a lot that we can talk about talent, a lot that we can talk about how to manage stakeholders, what kind of talent we can tap. Like a lot of organizations are going global. What are the global ways we can look at talent attraction? So we will kind of come back with a different session there. So thank you so much. Thank you for your time and have a great weekend. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you, Meena, for hosting this. Thank you.
Thanks everybody for joining in.
Thanks everybody. Thank you.
Bye.